Are you having problems hitting this? If you said yes, then don't worry, because you're not alone. This is the highest rank in Guilty Gear Strive, and only about 4% of players have this rank. And in this video, I'm both going to help you get to the rank before this rank, Diamond 3, and I'm going to give you some advice to help you get through the final challenge before getting the highest rank in Guilty Gear, Vanquisher. It might surprise you to hear this, but Guilty Gear Strive didn't get a formal traditional ladder until last August with a patch that came with Lucy from Cyberpunk. And players flocked to this mode. So you play 10 games first to be placed, and you get placed on a ladder from Iron rank to Diamond rank. The top rank, Vanquisher, has parallels with Street Fighter 6 Master rank, and it's a rank that you can't demote from. Instead, you play for Elo. So what's the problem? The big issue here is how much time it actually takes to get Vanquisher. I'm currently doing an all characters to Vanquisher, so every single character in the game to the highest rank challenge. And during this, I have ran into the same people a few times over the course of a few weeks. So we have this Zato player here, and the day I wrote this script, this player just got Vanquisher. So for me, a competitive player, the average time it takes for me to get a new character to the highest rank, if I place into the highest placement, which is Diamond 3, is 100 to 125 games. That could be as little as 3.5 hours and as much as 4 to 5 hours. How many games do you think it took for the Zato player I showed you before to get this rank? If you guessed 2,300 games, then you are correct. This took a couple of months for this player to achieve. It just goes to show how long it takes people to actually truly get the rank. So hopefully what you learned in this video will help cut this time just a little bit. And don't be afraid to revisit what's in this video as you get better at the game. Let's start with placing in ranks below Diamond ranks. And I want to start here because I believe your path to actually reach Diamond is relatively simple if you have a good foundation for learning the game. Also, very important side note here. I'm going to use numpad notation exclusively in this video. I'm going to talk to you like someone who plays the game. So I'm either going to use numpad notation or I'm going to say the name or the shorthand of a move. So if you don't know numpad notation or if you don't know the common shorthand used in the game, do not worry because we will have the inputs for the move on the screen when I talk about whatever move. And if you don't understand numpad notation especially, hopefully this will help you understand it, even if you don't like put time to actually understanding it. Call it numpad mind control, whatever. That's just what we're doing. So first off, and this is gonna sound a little silly, but you really actually want to make sure you play a character you enjoy in this game. So don't be too intimidated by ease of use when picking your character either. For example, Bedman is considered to be a 2-star ease of use character, so pretty difficult to pick up. And to be honest, it's the reason why I never really tried him until this all characters to Vanquisher challenge I'm doing on my stream. But once I actually picked him up, he wasn't that hard to learn. So even though he has unusual air options like his air dash, in the end, he's still a pretty intuitive character to me. On the other hand, Soul is 5-star ease of use, so he's considered to be very easy to pick up. And while this is definitely true, many high-level players say he's pretty hard to compete with despite how easy he may seem. This is meant for how easy the character is to pick up, not to actually play, if that makes sense. And listen, this game is pretty bullshit, I'm not gonna lie. So if you don't like your waifu, or your husbando, or the emperor, or whatever you end up picking, you're not gonna have that much fun playing the game. Take your time and try a few characters if you like. And if you're one of those fellows who are like, man, I can't decide on a main, I tried like 10 characters, I suggest you go into YouTube and type Guilty Gear Strive tier list and just pick whoever is at the top, because you're low-key wasting your time. It should not take you 10 plus characters to figure out what character you're going to play. The game has a pretty fleshed out tutorial in mission mode if you're brand new, and don't be afraid to just pick up and play some matches. A wise man did once say, the answer lies in the heart of battle, so playing the game will actually get you better at the game. Once you got some hours under your belt, and this can vary for people, I would say, I would start considering these goals to help you rise through the ranks. So for starters, every character has a win condition, a situation that you want to aim for your character because they have a big advantage. Sometimes this is one situation that you want to loop as much as you can because it's difficult to escape. Where other times there are a couple of different ways you can reach victory. For instance, we got Soul, bad guy here, and he's a pretty basic boy. And what he really wants is his opponent to block a slash button, because his buttons are uniquely advantageous compared to other characters. His combos also do a good chunk of damage, so it could be scary to get hit by him. But also, he has a pretty decent meter span on Bandit Revolver into a high-low mix-up that you can do. When he has meter, it makes his throw game safer because you could throw, and see your throw missed, and cancel the throw with purple Roman cancel. So when you're starting this character, you can just focus on how he could push advantage states from neutral with this button. So really what I mean is you can aim to make people block this button because you have frame advantage from neutral. So when I say from neutral, it's like you go from here, where you're not really attacking directly, to here, and make them block. Other characters, usually they'll be slightly disadvantaged when they swing into you, so this thing is a unique strength for Soul. Then, as time goes on, you could add the Bandit Revolver mix-up with Soul. And then when you get used to those two, you could add the throw into protect yourself with PRC. And those are three of the most important things to be good at with Soul. Try to think about how you can access these situations with your character and how you can access them as much as you can. Now, another thing that you could think about is how all the characters have the same gatlings. This chart here was being passed around when the game came out, and it essentially shows you the gatling chart, but to make it a bit simpler, the chart is essentially split between light and heavies. So we're going to look at three important gatlings and why you should get familiar with these in particular. Now the first one is kick into sweep. So this one comes up a lot because a lot of characters get good stuff off this gatling. For example, Bridget can set up her yo-yo, her win condition if you remember, into tricky high-low mix-ups. Or Milia can set up her disc for multiple mix-up attempts. But the reason why it's important to be familiar with this one in particular is because these situations, if you've noticed, cannot happen on block. They have to hit you. On block, at worst, you're blocking a special move after sweep. And usually these special moves are disadvantageous, so you can try to counter with an attack of your own. On top of that, many characters' sweeps are disadvantageous too, so if you notice them not canceling for some reason, you can take your turn back, or even punish in some situations. The next one I want to talk about are 6 normals. So any 6 normals do not have actual gatlings after. They're only cancelable into special moves. Going back to our good buddy Mr. Bad Guy, he has 3 of these, which is pretty rare in the game. And he has them on P, S, and H. So starting with 6H, this move is straight up not cancelable without meter. And if you look at my inputs on the right, I'm literally mashing and nothing is coming out. So pretty much if you block this, you can punish it with whatever. His 6S would be next to talk about, and this is a really important poke for him. Unfortunately, this move is also quite disadvantageous, so here he has to do a special move generally, unless he's far. The good news for Soul is that this move is actually quite big, so there are ranges where he doesn't have to, depending on the character. But he does have a lot of special cancel options. So for example, he could use Gunflame, and he can feint it by using 214P. The feint is disadvantageous, but if he's far, you can't really do anything about it. And if he's close, it could be a pretty fast check. And your character might not even get anything anyway. He can also choose to go over moves with Bandit Bringer. So once you know what he can do, you could try to pick a couple things. You could wait, because if he does Bandit Bringer, he's going to be disadvantaged. You could take your turn back. Gunflame point blank is not that scary. And here he's -9. So you could try running into him and counterattacking. Finally, his 6P is a counter poke that also has upper body invincibility. And similarly to success, he has to cancel because it doesn't have great frame data. Now, the number of how disadvantaged something is doesn't matter right now. The main thing you need to know is that they have to special cancel, and they probably will special cancel. So just be ready for it and try to have a plan for it. The last important gatling we have to look at is Close Slash. Close Slash goes into pretty much everything. Sweeps, 6 normals, far slash, heavy buttons. The only things that close slash doesn't go into really are your jabs and your kicks. Also, generally in the game, close slash is some degree of advantageous. So even though you're not canceling into them, they still function as you can go into them because you can use the frame advantage against the opponent. On top of that is dash cancelable and jump cancelable. So this is all around a character's best button for offense most of the time. So unlike the 6 normals we talked about before, close slash does everything. So what do we do about it? So there's 2 things we're going to be thinking about right now. So for starters is understanding that they get a lot of stuff off it. So if you block a character's close slash, you extra don't want to like mash or try to jump by default. You don't want to pick these things unless you have a read on what the opponent does based on seeing things that they've done before. Instead, what you can do is you can try using faultless defense to make it harder for the opponent to be close to you. And it will make it easier for you to either counter or jump or anything. Using faultless defense will make situations like close slash into throw a lot harder because your opponent will quite literally have to run further. It's a good habit to generally have. Now that we're pretty familiar with the important gatlings you want to look at, we're going to add a couple of more general ideas for the game to top off what you learned. So earlier we talked about 2K2D special move, and it's not just this gatling. This is pretty common in the game in general, of a character doing button, button, button special move. This special move will be disadvantageous usually, and this is generally where you want to do something. So use something like a punch or a kick to make sure your opponent doesn't steal a turn. So in this case, we block this move high so it hits sooner, and we use a punch or kick, usually punch, to make sure that Kai can't do another punch. Some characters win the game from situations like this, so having this as a deterrent is really good. So then usually where the opponent will go to is they'll pick backdash. So if you do your normal deterrent, they'll get away. Now, you could keep on swinging kick, because again, it is a great deterrent. But if you really want to get in the weeds and you notice this a lot, you're going to want to try to press a slash or heavy slash button. Again, it's going to depend on your character. This is pretty good because generally slash starters are better than light starters like kicks and punches. And you'll do more damage and probably get a good situation on hit too. If your opponent gets very scared, they'll pick block more, which lets you just establish offense. Or if they use a kick to beat your slash, you get to go back to your original option, which is to press 2K2D, which again, depending on your character, could be amazing. Or they might pick something extra risky, which means if you bait, you can get a huge return. Little side note, by the way, but we like to use lights here, like kicks or punches, in the case of they use DP, so that they don't get a counter hit on us. Like here, where a Kai will have a lot more advantage. Pretty much what I would recommend is you pick kick a bunch until you see them backdash a few times. Then every now and then on these backdashes, once you have a really good read on them picking it, you pick a slash button to hit them running away. This will keep you pretty safe overall, but at least have the small little nugget of, oh, they might pick something to chase my backdash. Another option you have for getting people off you is faultless defense. So outside of the benefit I mentioned before, of you just push them further away, an important thing to note about this game is that you get meter for doing a lot of stuff. You get meter for making them block, hitting them, you get meter for getting hit, doing special moves. Basically what I'm trying to say is you get so much meter that it's totally fine to spend the meter on faultless defense, especially when you don't know what to do. I mentioned this earlier against the opponent's close slash, but you can do this against any button to just push them further away. You can make buttons whiff and punish. You can back off safely. Or you can try to jump away from what comes next. Try to think about what your character is good at and see if you can do it. If you have 50 meter, you can press the RC button to YRC. This is kind of a last ditch get out of jail free card. This has two big problems, so really only try to use this if you don't know what to do or if you're really spooked. So for starters is how far away your opponent gets pushed now. Whether or not your character can act well at this distance will depend a lot on just what tools you have. But the other big problem comes from the meter penalty. So when you spend meter in this game, you actually have a small penalty of time depending on the action that you did. And YRC has a very, very large meter penalty. So for example, if Bridget just runs, just running gives you meter and she's getting quite a bit of it, right? But if I YRC this sweep and then run, you'll notice I get absolutely nothing for a while in comparison to normal. And you'll be able to see too when my meter gen is back, which is now. Look how much faster it builds up now. So I would try to make this a last resort if possible with your character. And now defense helps, but the best defense is a good offense, I've heard before. So I would also recommend learning some core combos with your character. But to be honest, when you're learning, everybody says to learn combos. So I'm going to tell you what I think is the most important combos to learn. Because early in this game's lifespan, there wasn't that many combo choices. They've actually added quite a lot of combo options for characters between system mechanics and new ways that counter hit works and all this stuff. So right now, we're not going to think about that. Instead of thinking about everything you could possibly do, we're going to focus on a couple of core things. And for starters, it is our good old friend 2K2D. If you're thinking, man, this is like the third or fourth time we're talking about 2K2D, it's because yes, it is really, really important in this game and it's good with a lot of characters. From the perspective of combos, not only do you get win con like we mentioned before, but it's also usually a fast starter. Characters 2K can be 5 or 6, usually at slow as 7 frame starter. So it's a pretty fast go-to when you don't know what to do. And also they're usually lows as well. So you can do them from running up. After that, though, we have our bread and butter. This is like our core combo that we are going to use for most situations. And there's going to be two bread and butters we're about to learn. One off close slash and one off far slash. Far slash is generally going to be the easier of these two because usually you don't get a big combo off far slash either because of distance, meaning that you have to do a specific special move, or requiring a resource like red wild assault. So learning a simple far slash combo is really good. In Kai's case, you can go into 5H, you go to 5H Stun Dipper, or if you're too far for 5H to connect for some reason, you can just go straight into Stun Dipper or red wild assault into whatever. If you play Mei, then your main far slash combo is usually going to be Dolphin, or going into red wild assault into a bigger combo. Now close slash is probably going to be your big money starter. It does kind of depend on where and why and your character. Sometimes you might be able to get a big route from mid-screen off close slash, and other times you might not get something so huge without extra resource. Another thing you'd want is a reversal punish. So dragon punches are counter hit state and airborne. You might get a unique combo here. Or if you have some situational awareness, you can do a charge dust punish. And this is pretty nice because you get positive bonus from anywhere with this. And you have the additional benefit of if the opponent has a burst, instead of knocking you down, you can actually reset to neutral. Because they can't burst and launch. So they have the burst here, which takes you here, which is a much better situation. So supers are a bit different in comparison. So they are very disadvantageous, but they're punish state and not counter hit state. You have a few options here. You can do whatever your close slash B&B is. You could also just do dust. Or you might want to think about how your character has some special routing depending on the super itself. And then lastly, you need a I don't know what to do combo. So this is going to be your go-to when you just get like a weird hit and you don't know what to do. It could just be something short that just knocks him down really quickly. A special move to knock down just something when you get a weird hit. These weird hits you will learn how to convert over time. Just at the beginning, you just need something that keeps you in advantage. The other really nice thing about having a combo like this is not just that you keep your advantage when you don't know what to do, but also that it tells you that you need something for that situation later. So if you find yourself repeatedly getting I don't know what to do hits against a specific character, you might want to really look at those situations and try to fix that. And now finally, the last thing you want to do is you want to see how your character spends resource. Now at this point in the game, this is pretty much the last version of Strive 1. Right now, there's going to be Strive 2.0 a little bit later in the year. So characters are pretty well developed, and how they spend meter is pretty developed as well. So you can just see what other people do with your character for this point. But in general, people use meter for combos. So sometimes you could get a combo you wouldn't get normally, or you can get a better combo by spending meter. People use it for mix-up, so going back to our old buddy, some characters can spend it on red RC for a mix-up. Some characters spend meter on purple RC for a mix-up, and still others will spend it on blue RC for a mix-up. Mix-ups being good because they're a method of hitting people, a reliable method of hitting people too, one where you make people guess, which is good. And finally, some characters use the meter to refund their resource or for resource management, so this can make it so that they give their resource back to themselves, or power up their character, or both. So all of these various tips should help you refine your game a little bit before you get to Diamond 3. So this is all pretty much about playing your character, stuff that you can use for your character. So to get through from Diamond 3 to Vanquisher, the last extra thing that we need is to learn how to fight characters. And because it's ranked, we're going to talk about 3 specific characters, because I have found that I run into these characters very often in my all characters to Vanquisher challenge. So I have the perception that these characters are just common and ranked. So the first character we're going to talk about is Potemkin. Now in the last patch before Lucy, Potemkin was considered by many high level players to be the single best character in the game by a good margin. And unfortunately for you, the viewer, he's a big body, so this character is also quite popular. Now, the biggest problems Potemkin is going to present to you is that his offense is quite strong. This move, Guarded at Impact, is an extremely advantageous projectile, and it leads to a straightforward and strong strike-throw mix-up. He can also sneak this move into his offense by either just straight up doing it, or using Blue Wall Assault to guarantee it, or even by spending his resource to get it. So the first strategy we want to use against Potemkin, and this is going to sound very silly, but hear me out, it is to not get hit by Potemkin. Oh, okay, duh, you don't want me to get hit in a fighting game, nice advice. Well, yes. But in Potemkin's case, it is extra important because of the type of character that he is. Because Potemkin is strong for sure, but he can't do what a lot of other characters can do. He cannot run, he can't air dash, and his jump is slower than other characters. So he's reliant on special moves like the full screen slide head, or he has to hit you with 5H somehow, or something to get started. He needs a hit to get started. So when I say don't get hit by Potemkin, what I'm trying to say is don't get hit for fun by Potemkin. Make him really work for that hit. Making him work for it will make it harder for him to access his strong win condition, where he feels overwhelming and powerful. If you get hit by Slidehead, he's able to actually go full screen towards you, but luckily, Slidehead can be backdash on reaction, and if you're really looking for it, you can air dash over it and hit him. Now, in the case of fighting his jump, it kind of depends because of this move, which is JD. JD is disjoint, and he speeds up the higher he falls from, I guess like real life. So he's not easy to anti-air here, and your response is going to be character specific. Now, the best thing I could personally recommend that's not character specific is just try your best to avoid the drop zone, for lack of a better word, since he's not that mobile anyway, so you can kind of just get out of there. Finally, 5H is an amazing poke. It hits very far, and it knocks down on air hit, which means it leads to his win con, on top of being disjointed. So there's two things we're going to try to do here. First, we're going to try to not backdash in 5H range. And this is because it knocks down on air hit. If you can, just try to like hold the line, or if you do really want to move, just pick jump or something. Because if he makes you block in the air, it's chill. But if he hits you in the air, it's doom. So it's really, really, really important to not backdash, just move randomly, because he could just hit you by accident. The second thing is that if possible, we're going to make this move one of the first moves that we try to whiff punish in the game, because if he whiffs this, he's vulnerable for a very long time. Whether or not your character actually has the ability to do this will vary a lot. So for example, with Kai, this is not that bad, and he gets a combo. Pretty sick. If you have Red Wild Assault, you can combo from really far as well. You'll note here that all of these points are about stuff from neutral and not from blocking him, and that's because Potemkin is really good when he gets in, so there's not a lot you can do. There's stuff, but there's not a ton of stuff you can do once you actually block him. So our goal is to really try to minimize how much we get hit and minimize the amount of times we block him randomly or in a spot where he can actually do something with it. And if you get really good at this, the nice thing is that when you do get hit, finally, you can use burst and then make the game nice and slow again and try to get your burst back. So this should help some. The next character to discuss would be Seylor. So he's been overall a good character since his release at the end of Season 3. And like Potemkin, there's going to be 3 things we're aiming for when fighting this character. And for Diamond 3 specifically, we're going to try to take advantage of how linear people who play Seylor play him. So for starters, we want to check this. And not the move we blocked, the move that enters into it, which is Dandy Step. So if he does 214K or 214P, he does a slide either backwards or forwards, depending on which one you press. So when we see this, we want to hit it. And if you do it fast enough, you should check the special move he does to follow it up. Specifically, you'll hit the low and the high in many cases. In the case he does the hop Master's Hammer, you'll generally recover, which is really nice. So when you recover, I would say originally just block or try to jump. There's actually something better that you can do, 2 things better that you can do, but they're both kind of hard. I'm Kai right now, so you could DP after the whip. I think that's lightly difficult, and then the really sweaty thing is to throw it, but very few people actually pull this off in matches. The easiest option for sure is to try to jump. Seylor is pretty vulnerable doing this. So depending on your character, you might get a punish into a combo. So then the last thing you'd have to worry about is Power Bunker. And there's 2 big thoughts about fighting this move. So we'll start with the harder one. In the case that this happens, this is a very, very big tell about the type of person you're playing. You might be like, what happened? But take a look at Seylor's meter. So they're doing Power Bunker with no meter. If you block Power Bunker with no meter, you can do anything you want, basically, besides like charge dust. Just anything, any type of punish would be fine here. Now, if they do this, it's a good default choice because they're trying to check people mashing on Dandy Step. And you have a couple things you can try. The easier thing to try is to learn to delay your mash slightly so that if they do Power Bunker, you don't press. But if they do anything else, you do. If you have a good read on them, you can try to throw Power Bunker, but this is really spooky and really depends on spacing. So try to only do this if you notice them going for it a really specific way. Next, it's a pretty good idea to avoid running at him with 2K. And the reason is because of this move. So this hop here is the big reason. This attack crushes lows on frame 5. So not just 2K, but it becomes pretty difficult to use any type of low against this character. But it's not just that move. There's also the much less sexy 5K, which also coincidentally is pretty good against run-up kicks. The final reason you might not want to use run-up kicks that much is because you might accidentally get hit by this move, Mappa Hunch. And there are 2 versions of this move. There's the P version that doesn't go as far, and there's the K version that has a much longer trajectory. And the main one we're trying to fight is the K version because it has a much further distance travel than P. So instead of running at him and swinging, there'll be times where you want to run at him and just block. And what this does is if he hits with the Mappa too early, you can punish him with throw. The only thing is you'd have to make sure you can tell the difference between P and K. But what I can tell you is in Diamond 3, your opponent, the enemy Seylor, is not thinking about this distinction. They're just sending the K. So if you can run into K Mappa and throw it, it will help you out a lot. And characters have generally good situations off throws. Like Kai here doing charge stun edge. We like this. Now, there's one more character we are going to talk about fighting. He's common in Diamond 3, but it's not the character you're probably thinking of. That's right, it is Sin Kiske. Kisk. I believe it's actually Kisk. But I want to talk about him specifically because I think he's a great introduction to learning how to fight something that's pretty important in Guilty Gear, which is fighting your enemy's character-specific resource. So a lot of characters have this character-specific resource. So a bar right above their tension that lets you know how much or how little of something they can do. That being said, it could be pretty difficult to actually use this bar to make choices in a match. For example, Happy Chaos has both bullets and concentration to manage. That's the blue bar that's draining. Concentration is what actually lets him shoot the bullets. So when it's red like this, he can't do it until this bar fills back up. Now you would think that when he's down on resource, you can do more versus him. This is true, but there are annoying guessing games around both of these resources. So for example, with bullets, sometimes they'll reload more bullets than they technically can, and the reload animation itself is pretty fast. And they're doing this because they don't think you'll run as far or something. Now, to regain concentration, they'll use a mix of blue wall assault or reload, not firing on buttons like kicks or close slash, or putting the gun in their pressure to extend the turn, which means that when they're low on resource, they'll put it away and then use the gun flip so that they can stall a little bit more. And sometimes they'll even choose to run on purpose because there are cases where he can combo you without using gun resources. And in the case that you hold, you take something where he gets the resource back, and now you have to block a bunch more mix-ups. So people misjudge against Happy Chaos all the time because of these factors. And what's nice about learning how to fight Sin is that he doesn't have that much ambiguity in his character-specific resource. So for starters, Sin's stamina gauge refills very slowly. I believe it takes like 13 seconds for it to actually start refilling. And not only does it take a long time to refill, but he doesn't have like 25 or 50% expenditure. So you can see here that like, I can't do the follow-up at 50%. I have to actually have a full stock before I do the special move again. Unlucky, because usually characters can do stuff like that. So the only thing you really have to pay attention to is specifically how many stocks of the stamina he has. And this leads us to a couple of important points. So for starters, when he has no stamina, his special moves are not safe. Beak Driver is punishable, as is Elk Hunt, as is Hoof Stomp. All these special moves are actually punishable on block when he doesn't have stamina. So if you can, you should try to take your turn back when you notice he doesn't have stamina, but he goes into a special move. You can also use the meter to gauge when he's going to go for Hoof Stomp in the corner for an easy hit. It costs 2 because he has to dash cancel. But it's also worth noting that even if he can't dash cancel, if he has 50 meter for RC, he'll spend it. So look out for that as well. Finally, when he does do a follow-up, you can aim to delay throw tech to avoid the throw in the strike throw. And this is because Sin can't actually walk out of throw range, even though he has so much frame advantage. If you want a detailed explanation about this, my good friend, training partner, Jonathan Tene made a video last patch about this, but it still applies to Sin right now if you want really specific details on why this works. So improving your character and then improving at fighting characters, this last thing is really what moves you from being like kind of new to the game to being into the game, because in the end, at high level, Guilty Gear is a matchup game. It's about characters versus characters. So knowing how to fight opponents' characters is the last step to getting into Vanquisher without taking a ton of time. Let me know what you guys think though. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I have actually been talking about this topic on Patreon, but I've mostly been saying what my opponents have been doing that I think is wrong, which I did not include in this video. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, I have that on Patreon, patreon.com/LordKnight. All the stuff related to this video, like what people are doing wrong in Diamond 3. That's on there for free, so if you want to join as a free member to watch those videos, they're all there. I post like once a week for both members and free members. We are also, as I mentioned in this video, doing a all characters to Vanquisher rank on stream, and I stream on YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/LordKnight. And if you are watching here, I stream it here too on YouTube, so check that out. Any coaching, medify.gg/LordKnight. And then we also record videos on stream for my second channel, LordKnight Chronicles, so check that out. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.